What is harassment? We've been saying and harping on about the code aims to eliminate harassment, violence, discrimination. So what is harassment? Okay, before we delve into it, based on everything that we have said, you can drop a comment, an emoji in the comment section of my recording if you're watching from YouTube. So one emoji for I don't understand it at all, two emojis for I have a basic understanding, but I might need some clarification, three for I understand it reasonably well and explain it when needed, four, I have a good grasp and can explain it confidently, five, I understand it thoroughly and you can ask me about it anytime. You can drop a comment, you can pause while you drop a comment. Okay, so here's the definition. You can see if you rated yourself correctly or incorrectly. It's your own self-assessment. So what is harassment? So harassment is unwanted conduct, which is persistent and serious and demeans, humiliates, creates a hostile, intimidating environment, or is calculated to induce submission by actual or threatened adverse consequences. So my one that I made reference to in the previous slide, that there was an employee, like she was old enough to be my mother at the time. So she also had all sorts of things to say about my dress code, about my hair. And then this other time, because I was working in a small town, I went to this retail store. It was the only retail store for women in that small little town. I went there, and then one of the employees, the lady employees, they were saying to each other, you look like that lady that so and so said she's dull. That's why she's been single for 3 years. And that time she had told me that I'm very dull. That's why I've been single for such a long time. So I didn't know that at the time it was actually harassment and it was persistent, and I realized that it was demeaning. It was humiliating. Actually, I realized it putting together this course. At the time, I didn't realize that it was actually harassment, So it includes the following: violence, physical abuse, psychological abuse, emotional abuse, gender-based violence, and racial abuse. And then it covers a wide range of issues or things, the term harassment. So it can be sex, gender, or sexual orientation, nationality. Somebody can be harassed based on their ethnic or social origin or pregnancy or marital status, family responsibility, or family status, ethnic or social origin, color, sexual age, religion, HIV, belief, political language, birth, or any other arbitrary ground. Okay, then let's go deeper into what is unwanted conduct. So whenever you're considering if the conduct is unwanted or not, you must consider if the perpetrator knew that the conduct was unwanted, number one. Number two, let me just want to move my Zoom bar. Okay, let's move you away, Mrs. Zoom bar. Okay. And then communication from the complainant or the victim. So you must also evaluate if the complainant clearly communicated to the perpetrator that the conduct was unwelcome, and then it strengthens the case if the perpetrator was aware of the issue. The communication does not have to be like explicitly verbal, so it can also include other forms like non-verbal expressions and non-verbal cues as well. And then recognition of unacceptable conduct or behavior. So in some situations, there's no explicit communication from the complainant or the victim, but it is essential to examine whether the conduct was of such nature that the perpetrator should have known if the conduct was unacceptable. An example of this is like smacking a colleague's bums, it's sort of common knowledge that you don't do that. Nobody does that. So this is the recognition of unacceptable conduct. Or if you squeeze a colleague's boobs, we all know that this one, it might be pushing it a bit. And then also workplace training. So as I said, that this kind of training, in my opinion, should be done as part of an induction and onboarding employees. So to address and prevent harassment effectively in the workplace, it is crucial to provide training to employees and managers to recognize and respond to harassment. This training should cover like a variety of topics such as the ones that I've covered. Like, for example, had I had this kind of training, I would have known that what that older lady was doing to me was actually harassment. Okay, to address and harassment effectively in the workplace, it is crucial to provide training to all the employees and managers on responding and recognizing harassment. So as I said that had I had this training, I would have known that this is harassment and I would have been provided with the proper tools and guidelines and recommendation on how to address the harassment, okay? So the role of workplace training is to understand the various forms of harassment and the impact it can have on the individuals in the workplace. So it had an impact on me in that it lowered my esteem quite a bit at the time. And then recognizing behaviors that may constitute harassment, even if they're not explicitly communicated as unwelcome by the victim. So this lady, if she had attended this type of training, she would have known that it's unacceptable to comment on a person's dress code, their hair, how they present themselves, and then encouraging employees to speak up and report incidents of harassment promptly. I would have been able to recognize it and report it promptly, and then providing guidance on appropriate workplace behavior and fostering culture of respect and inclusion, and then educating managers and supervisors of their role of preventing and addressing harassment. So this one takes me back to the previous case that we did, where the senior manager was always belittling the junior female employee. So if he, senior manager, was educated, he would have known that this is unacceptable. This is not how we talk to people. And also, if he was in a case where a complaint was brought to him, he would have known how to handle it, okay? And then regular training sessions on these topics. So maybe another suggestion is to have like, what do they call it? A topic of the week, for example, HR topic of the week pertaining to harassment, and then have posters, highlight what constitutes harassment, what constitutes bullying, okay? So for our next activity, so I'd like to make this, or I made this highly interactive, provided some scenarios that probe you to think. So here's another scenario. So please complete this in your workbook that I have provided on the training. So let me just read through it. So at a company dinner event celebrating the successful completion of a project, several employees from different departments gather at a local restaurant. During the dinner, John, a senior executive, consistently directs inappropriate comments and jokes towards Lisa, a junior employee who recently joined the company. These comments include suggestive remarks about Lisa's appearance and personal life, as well as jokes of a sexual nature. Despite Lisa's discomfort and attempts to steer the conversation back to professional topics, John continues to make these remarks in front of their colleagues. Lisa starts feeling increasingly uneasy and embarrassed by the comments, especially as they draw attention from others in the table. Okay, or maybe let's just go through the questions in our notebook. Okay, so as part of the assignment, so if you are accessing the training from my online platform, you would have this manual, and then you'll be able to download and print it and make your notes on it and answer on it. So reflect on the scenario provided and address the following questions in your response. Identify and describe the specific behaviors or actions in the scenario that could be considered harassment or inappropriate, and then consider how Lisa might communicate her discomfort or disapproval of John's behavior during work dinner, both verbally and not verbally. Okay, non-verbally, she can just frown and scowl at him. And then in the absence of direct communication from Lisa, discuss indicators that suggest John should have recognized his behavior is unacceptable. And then explore the importance of workplace training in preventing and addressing harassment, particularly in social settings. Remember, I touched on the application of the code, and I said it applies to all the places where employees gather for work purposes. So this is a work purpose to celebrate an achievement, okay?